We are back because the draft is right here. Mock drafts, we got them. 6-24 for the Browns. What's going to happen? Got a couple opportunities, got a couple options, some scenarios. And what about all the nonstop Myles Garrett trade rumors? And oh yeah, that little quarterback competition thing, Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders. We'll get into all of it right now.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara, the sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
Chubb runs, he's to the 10, 15, he's to the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. There goes Chubb, he's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Shabba-lubba hub.
It's gonna be sick.
Hello, everybody. It is almost draft day. The most glorious time of the year for us Browns fans. It's really the Super Bowl until we're actually able to finally get to one, right? Free agency done, the heavy lifting over, and now we get a much clearer view of what the Browns need and should, keyword do, when it comes to the NFL draft. And really, how much has changed since before free agency? Still need a wide receiver, top guy. Still need a left tackle, top guy. Make sure you're clicking subscribe, notifications on. Follow us on social at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81. That's on X, TikTok, and Instagram at AndyMCSports. Make sure you're following there. I want to first of all know what you guys want in the draft at 6 and 24. Been talked about a lot. Is it position? Is it a specific player? I think you mix in 39 a little bit too, right? A lot of different possibilities in the quarterback competition. Okay, let's just get this out of the way. Then we'll get to my guy, Josh Edwards from CBS Sports. Haven't had him on in a while. Very excited to have Josh back on the show. Heck of a mock draft guy, draft analyst. We'll have him on in a moment. But this quarterback competition, Todd Monken speaking to the media, right, ushering in this new era. And is it going to be Deshaun? Is it going to be Shedeur? Is it going to be Dillon Gabriel? First of all, I can save us a whole lot of time. Anybody who writes an article or wastes breath on sports talk radio to say that Dillon Gabriel legitimately has any shot in any universe, any dimension of being the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns or any NFL team or CFL team for that matter is out of their mind. It's not happening. Now, could he physically start a game? Yeah. How many quarterbacks do we go through each season as Browns fans? 3, 4, 2023, 5. So he could. But is Dillon Gabriel ever going to win a quarterback competition? Absolutely not. And I'm still, just when I think I'm over last year's draft, it's something with Dillon Gabriel popped me out, and it just sets me off. You wasted a third-round pick on a guy you could have had in the 7th, or who cares? You don't get him. Remember his superpower? His process is super fast. Okay. He can't score points, and he's a 5'9". Great. That's a guy in the competition. He's out. Stop it. None. I don't want to hear anything about it. Shedeur Watson, that's where the money's at. Todd Monken seemed to hint that it was Shedeur Sanders, the guy who finished things off to get the first rep. And I think that's fair. My concern is this, that Deshaun Watson last year, now we're going to be feeling the salary cap dead money hit for 2 more years after this. So don't worry, folks. We'll still be mentioning the debacle that is Deshaun Watson. But my fear is Deshaun Watson comes out and looks great in camp. Now, inherently, that's not bad. But 7-on-7s, and Tom Monken said it, you can be good 7-on-7s. You don't play 7-on-7. You got to get in there. And then when he gets in there, he falls apart, and we're going to have to deal with the rust conversation yet again. Put Shedeur in. Deshaun Watson's done after this year. So why play him? Have him as a backup. Shedeur gets hurt or stinks. Pop him in, fine. Shedeur should have every opportunity to earn this job, and I hope that he does. Until they start getting on the field, we don't know. One thing I'm pretty certain, though, is that the Browns are not going to be drafting a quarterback, at least high, and it better not be Ty Simpson in the first round. Let's bring in from CBS Sports, Josh Edwards, to talk more about draft, more about trade rumors. Josh, how you doing, buddy? It's the best time of the year, draft season.
Yeah, doing well. A little less than 2 weeks from the time that we're recording this, so it's getting very real. Obviously, I'm sure the Browns have an idea of what they hope to accomplish in the first round and over the course of those 3 days. But, until draft night, we will not. So it's fun to talk about the scenarios as long as we can. And certainly they give us enough to talk about.
Well, no doubt. And last year, of course, they threw us a loop. Second overall, Andrew Berry praising Travis Hunter, and then draft up, boom, trade down, get Mason Graham, and get this other first-round pick from Jacksonville that, well, nobody thought was going to be as low as 24, Josh. We were thinking, 10, 12. Now it's 24. So who knows what happens on draft night? Before we get to more of the draft scenarios, I want to get to, you put out a great tweet at Edwards CBS on X on the Myles Garrett trade rumors. And for those who don't know, real quick, the Browns restructured his contract and seemed a little odd because the cap experts are saying the only reason you restructure that is to make it easier to trade. You said this: most Browns, Cowboys, and Dallas Cowboys hottest rumors to get this trade with Myles Garrett, hometown boy, go home. Most Browns, Cowboys trade down scenarios I've seen on social media are just done out of the kindness of Cleveland's heart because the value exchanged makes no sense. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so working through mock draft scenarios, the Cowboys have been a popular team, linked to possibly trade up in this year's draft. I think that's a team that believes they need to make an impact in 2026. I think Jerry Jones is feeling the heat a little bit. I think, when they traded Micah Parsons, the backlash that he received was something that maybe he did not expect or, certainly was not wanted. So they went out, they traded for Quinnen Williams, who is prolonged in his career. They're giving a lot of money to not one, but two wide receivers this year. So they're over leveraging themselves in the present. They were a part of the Max Crosby conversations as well. So this is a team that appears to be wanting to add impact performers for the upcoming season. And if they sit at number 12 overall, I'm not sure they're going to have an opportunity to add that player. So for a team wanting to move up, potentially like the Cowboys and the Browns, who historically want to trade down with Andrew Berry, those two parties make a lot of sense as far as potential trade partners on draft night. Where I think the disconnect has been on social media is the compensation. I've often seen reports that, maybe the Browns would trade 6 and 39 in exchange for number 12 and number 20. And I've done a lot of research on trades over the years, specifically involving first-round picks. If it's moving up for a quarterback, you typically pay a premium. The team that's moving up has to pay a premium. It's about 10%. If you're moving up for a position that's not necessarily a quarterback, you don't have to pay that premium, but the team that you're trading with is also not going to give you a deal. So in this scenario, 6 and 39 for 12 and 20 on Sports Line's trade value chart, which is what I use. RJ White puts that together. He does a great job. It's a 52-point difference, which essentially equates to, let me see, I have it in front of me here. 52 points is number 78 overall. So, you're talking about a third-round pick. That's a starter for a team. So Cleveland is not just going to hand over the number 6 overall pick without Dallas having to pay for it. So the projections that I've seen on social media, I think it's a little friendly for Dallas. I think they'll have to give up a little bit more. And I'm not even sure that Cleveland really wants 12 and 20, to be honest with you. I don't know that there's that much of a difference between 20 and 39. I think it's more important for them to get picks into the future, whether that's 2027 or 2028. And, for Dallas's perspective, if they really are trying to add impact performers, they would place more of an emphasis of value on retaining 2026 picks. So for that reason, I could see Cleveland getting better value if it includes future picks as opposed to just doing basically a 1-for-1 swap in 2026.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I love all the scenarios, and it's like, well, in any sport, Josh, I've been doing sports talk for a long time. It's like, well, do this. It's like you realize the other team has to agree, right? Just because you want this for your team doesn't mean you get this sweetheart deal. Absolutely, 20 and then the Browns would have 20 and 24. So what?
Right.
They are building for that 2027. What is supposed to be a delicious quarterback draft class. Now, whether that happens or not, we know each year. No one had Fernando Mendoza going first overall this time last year, Josh. It was Nussmeier.
He was my number one quarterback in May, though.
Was he?
He was, yeah. I've got
There you go,
a story.
kid.
You can go back to May. It's top 10 offensive prospects for the
Wow.
2026 NFL draft in May, just after last year's draft. And Fernando Mendoza was quarterback one, mostly because I wasn't comfortable putting Arch Manning as quarterback one, considering how little he had played. But I thought Mendoza was great at California, and Indiana was getting a great player before he ever took a snap for him.
Okay, so another reason to follow Josh at Edward CBS on X. He had Mendoza before anybody. I was at week 3. I was in Cleveland, Josh. I saw after the Browns won, beat the Packers, was watching him on TV, and I just pointed. I was like, that's the guy right there. But my point is, it's like, not many people. You have surprised Josh Allen, the 2018. No one saw him coming. There's always surprises, and you cannot count on the future. But to that point, if you're dealing draft picks, if you're doing Myles Garrett and getting rid of Myles Garrett, you're absolutely right in that there's a premium on a quarterback, but Myles Garrett is arguably the best athlete in football and defensive player of the year in his prime. You put him on the Dallas Cowboys and everybody stays healthy on offense, Dallas Cowboys become Super Bowl contenders. And that's why you got to look into the future. The problem is they already owe the Jets the hire of their and Green Bay's first round pick next year. So if they trade with Cleveland, they're going to have 0 first round picks. That's why I don't really see this deal happening with Dallas unless Jerry gets crazy, which is always a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know that Dallas necessarily has the resources for Myles Garrett. My scenario was just strictly for 2026, but
right.
I do think they would love to make an addition like Myles Garrett, but it may be limiting in terms of the resources that they do have. Would they consider the Jets? Like, would the Jets even use all the draft capital that they've, collected as in a possible Myles Garrett deal? I don't necessarily think that that's part of their roster building strategy, but if you were to look at another team like the Eagles, there's a number of teams that are going to line up and take their swing at possibly getting Myles Garrett. But the team has essentially made a public decision privately by reworking his contract that he's available. They have not said this explicitly. In fact, they've said quite the opposite. But there's really no other reason for them to do what they did with his contract unless it was to give themselves more time to at least examine all possibilities of potentially moving Myles Garrett. At the end of the day, he may not. I think that's still probably the most realistic outcome. But this is a team that I think has a little bit of self-awareness, understands where they are presently in the roster building strategy. And as much as you'd love to have Myles Garrett throughout his Hall of Fame career, if you're trying to build an organization, moving forward, those draft assets into the future, possibly getting your quarterback probably sets you up a little bit better than maybe what Myles Garrett will bring in the short term. So it's a lot to consider for the Browns. I'm sure Andrew Berry has talked through this with a lot of teams, but whenever it is said and done, I would imagine 3 first-round picks is probably where that conversation starts.
Yeah, it's got to be that or 2 first rounds and a star player from another position, whatever that might look like. And remember, folks, it's no right now to trade Myles Garrett. Trade deadline, get the first round for the next year and go for it. That could be a whole different conversation. Who knows? But in the meantime, we can enjoy the best defensive player in the league on the Cleveland Browns. Let's talk mocks here, Josh. Okay, I know you're all over this. And the Browns got 2 picks. They got 6 and 24. Most commonly, and I think rightly, you need an offensive tackle, specifically left tackle after free agency. The Browns, Andrew Berry filled every position but and center. And a star wide receiver. Like Jerry Jeudy, I think as a 2 you love. Can you get a number 1? Where do you see the Browns? What are you hearing, feeling, thinking when it comes to 6 and 24?
Yeah, ideally, I think they would love to come away with their left tackle of the future as well as a potential number 1 wide receiver. I'm not sure that there's a number 1 wide receiver in this draft class unless it's Carnell Tate, from Ohio State. And that's simply because Jordan Tyson, just with his injury history, can he stay healthy long enough for him to be that player for you? He's still wide receiver 1 for me, but if I was a coach that was on the hot seat for the upcoming season, it's more difficult to stake your claim on a player that has been injured the last couple of years. Yep. That's just simply the truth of the matter. So I think those conversations will come into play in terms of who ultimately takes Jordan Tyson, somebody that, maybe has a little bit more time and is not feeling the hot seat this upcoming season. So as far as number 6 and number 24 are concerned, what I always come back to is the left tackle going to be there at number 24 if your goal is to take wide receiver and left tackle? And working through scenarios, a lot of those left tackles are typically off the board. And we're talking about Monroe Freeling from Georgia, Caleb Lomu from Utah, and potentially Caden Proctor from Alabama as well. In most mock draft scenarios recently, Proctor and Freeling have been off the board. And then there's some teams that have concerns with Lomu's play strength. Is that something that's going to be, I guess, prohibitive of him starting from day one? So he's not going to be a fit for everybody, I don't think. But your left tackle may not be there at number 24, which means you may have to reach to take that player at number 6 overall if you truly want that, unless you're able to trade back with the Cowboys or, as in a situation we discussed earlier. But I think Carnell Tate, to me, is a better prospect than the top left tackle in this class. So I lean towards that direction, knowing that I could get a better wide receiver at 24 overall probably than, maybe the left tackle. Mm-hmm. So it's a very complicated decision. I think if you're Andrew Berry, there's a wide range of opinions on Monroe Freeling. If you listen to Brandon Thorne, who breaks down offensive line play, does a great job with that. He's kind of in a similar range with me in the sense that Freeling's more of like a second round pick. I think there's, a lot of stuff that he needs to work on. But the traits are tantalizing. I get it. He did play his best football at the end of the 2025 season. Incredibly young, athletic, basketball background, all that stuff. I get it. But just looking at where he is now, it's kind of difficult to project him moving forward. Whereas if you listen to Nate Tice and, his father, Mike Tice, former NFL head coach, I trust their opinion as well. And they think that he's easily a top 10 pick and somebody that is kind of in a similar mold to Joe Thomas, listening to their recent podcast on Football 301. So there's a wide range of opinions. I don't know where the Browns ultimately stand on that, but I think if you're hoping to come away with a left tackle and a wide receiver, it's just all about how you build that package, because I do think there are options available at both positions. It's just a matter of weighing the risk of possibly waiting for that left tackle at 24 if you don't go in that direction at number 26.
Right. And it's a bad year to need a left tackle. That's just, there's lots of right tackles, lots of guards. And Andrew Berry kind of hinted at this, Josh, where he was kind of bragging on like, well, all the free agents we signed have versatility. Titus Howard has played right tackle, but in college he played left tackle. So it's a guard and tackle. So I wouldn't be floored if I saw, let's say they said Francis Magnoa was their top tackle. Now he's right tackle. And some people even think he'd be a better guard. And he's apparently got some back issues, but all in all, looks like he's a heck of a prospect. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, we'll take him. Titus Howard, you go play left tackle for now. You got DeJuan Jones kind of as a swing tackle guy if he can stay healthy and go from there. That's the other side of it. That's why it's so, there's so much up in the air. But I'm with you. I want Carnell Tate badly at 6. But my fear is, like you said, where, okay, I might not get Carnell Tate, but could I swing back at 24 and get a Denzel Boston? Could I go at 39 and get a Malachi Fields or Jacoby Lane with a lot of upside? I'm a Jacoby Lane truther, man. I'm telling you, that dude can, out of USC, the other USC beside Malachi Lemon. It's Malachi Lemon. It's a lot of scenarios where if you don't get the tackle, and if it's a reach, it's only a reach. Let me say this too. It's only a reach to the outside. Bo Nix was a reach for the Denver Broncos at the time, not a reach to Sean Payton because it was his guy, right? So it's all about the fit, right?
Yeah, without question. One guy that I really love late in round 1, if you're targeting wide receivers, Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. He's incredibly dynamic with the ball in his hands. In the modern offenses, if you just get him the ball and allow him to turn a single or a double into a home run, I think he's a prospect that's capable of doing that. He did have some quote unquote drop issues this past season, but I also think that some of that could be, easily explained away by looking at where the quarterback targets were. There were a lot of off-target throws in that offense that, I think Concepcion also made a lot of great plays. So it kind of goes hand in hand. I think there were some focus issues there, but he's an incredibly talented player. He's kind of the one that I would love for the Browns to get if they were to take Freeling or address the offensive line at number 6 overall. But it's a really deep wide receiver class. I think you can get quality options into day 2 and, even into early day 3. If the Browns wanted to double dip at that position, I could certainly understand it. But, they've got needs at slot cornerback. They could potentially take another tight end as well. However you sort out that offensive line, you may need 2 starters.
Safety,
you could use safety. You could. Ronnie Hickman has been a quality player, and you could possibly, get him out of there as well. That's kind of the other scenario at number 6 overall. If you're a team that is not necessarily believing that 2026 is going to be your year, then do you consider a Caleb Downs or an Arvell Reese, the edge rusher from Ohio State? I think, if either of those 2 players were to be available, and I think Downs is more likely, it would at least be a conversation. I still think they would probably take left tackle, wide receiver, but I think you have to have the conversation.
Yep, and maybe that's a tip. If they randomly take an edge rusher out of nowhere, keep your eyes peeled on a Myles trade. Last one for you here, Jeremiah Love, because there's been a lot of smoke now where Tennessee will take him at 4. I think that makes sense. A wow athlete. He can catch. He can run, pass protect. Seems like he can do it all. If he were to fall to 6, and it could happen, right? Because you have depth at defense. You got a whole bunch of scenarios. I've heard some rumors. If he goes at 6, the Browns with Todd Monken wanting to smash mouth, even with Quinshon Judkins there coming off of a surgery, would that floor you as a oh man, that's a huge mistake for the Browns to do? And what do you think of him as an athlete?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of conversation that maybe Jeremiah Love would be of interest to the Browns. I think if any of that is coming out of Berea, it's probably, to entice a potential trade up partner. I don't think it would make a lot of sense for the Browns, honestly, just because I think when you have so many other positions unsettled with your offensive line, the quarterback, the running back position is so reliant on you, having an offensive structure in place where you can just drop that player in and allow him to be successful. And I don't think that's a luxury that the Browns have at this point. I think they have a lot of other more pressing needs. So for me, I would not take Jeremiah Love. There's only so many carries to give to your running backs, even if you do have 2 quality ones. If you're getting gashed on defense and you find yourself trailing, as they often have in the second half of games, like, you're going to have to throw your way out of it, and you don't have anybody there to catch the football. So to me, I think it's a luxury they cannot afford. I know he's a quality player. Some team is going to take him and get a high impact performer, but I'm just not sure that the Browns, where they are in their current roster building strategy, could make that type of a selection.
I'm 100% with you. Would love to have the player, but they got way too many holes to fill I take a luxury pick like that. Josh, tell people.
Now, day 3, I mean, if you want to take a running back day 3, Nick Singleton, someone like that out of Penn State, I understand that, add another player, especially as Judkins is returning from injuries. But number 6 it's just a little bit too rich for my blood.
Yeah, I'm down with you, buddy. Okay, where can people find you leading up to the draft and all that good stuff? Remember, folks, Josh pegged Mendoza before it was cool a year ago. So where can people find you?
Yeah, CBSSports.com. I've got, 2 more mock drafts, I guess, next week, and then the final the week of the draft. I did a 7-round mock draft just last week, I believe. So, you can familiarize yourself with some of the names that are available beyond the first round and day 2. I'll be doing draft grades for at least day 3 and potentially day 2 of the NFL draft as well for CBSSports.com. So, we're covering it from it's a one-stop shop. We're covering it from tail to nose at CBSSports.com. So come check us out.
Love it, buddy. You always do such great work. Let's do it again much sooner, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there he goes, Josh Edwards from CBS Sports on X at Edwards CBS. I didn't know he had Mendoza picked back in May. Gonna have to pay better attention to Josh's previews long term. My goodness. Here's the thing, folks. While the Browns do need a left tackle, and they do need a wide receiver. Offensive linemen are bodyguards for the stars, right? To protect the quarterback, to clear holes for the running back. How many years do we have Joe Thomas, who's bobblehead right up there with the consecutive streak snap I got at the game years ago? Did he play? And that the Browns had Petonio. They had a great offensive line, but you had nobody to catch the ball or throw the ball. At some point, you got to gamble and say, hey, don't overthink it, which the Browns always do with Andrew Berry. They always outsmart themselves. Take the best wide receiver. It is Carnell Tate is the best, and then you have a lot of depth of WR2s under that. A lot of good depth. Carnell Tate's the guy. You get Carnell Tate, you have a star. You have a star for Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson to throw the ball to. That then moves Jerry Jeudy down, sends Isaiah Bond out, Harold Fannin Jr. Now we're popping. Why not take a star for once in your life, Andrew Berry? Take a star on offense. Not some guy who's got dropsies, who always his spark scores. I don't care about spark scores. I care about Ohio State wide receivers who are superstars in the league that I have to play against and see every year. That's what I care about. How about we get one? And the best one available. Carnell Tate at 6, and you figure out the tackle, whether you have to trade up, get 2, I don't know. Figure it out. Get somebody else at left tackle or move Titus Howard over, get someone else at right tackle. Get a star. It fixes a lot. Tom Brady had horrible offensive lines. You know why they didn't look bad? Because he got the ball out quick, because he had playmakers. And he was also, one of the best of all time, next to Otto Graham. Get the star, Barry. Make a splash. Get the star. Get it done. Big thanks to Josh Edwards, to all of you. We'll be back draft week, man. Draft week, we'll have a mock. I want to do a mock simulator. Get one of those mock simulators up and do a live mock simulator. See what we think. Have somebody on to do that with me and have some fun with that. But let me know, who do you want at 6 and 24 for the Browns? Would you trade Myles Garrett? If so, what's your price? $1 Million Man says it. Everybody's got a price. What's your price to trade Myles Garrett? Or is it a non-starter? Make sure to follow us on X at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81, on TikTok and Instagram at AndyMC Sports. Big thanks to Josh Edwards from CBS Sports. Great guy. Producer Shane, and I'm Andy Mack. Until next time, go Browns!
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.